it's bad?
No, I'd say this is actually pretty good.
Okay. How is it sounding now?
No, it's good. It sounds good now. It's not as muffled.
Okay. Right, is it muffled now? How is it now?
No, you're fine now.
Okay, so I need to hold it right to my mouth as a microphone.
Yeah, that'd be ideal.
Okay, all right.
All right, okay. I'll be right back.
Okay, thank you so much. Hey, everybody, let me know if you can hear me. We're coming up with some new stuff. Okay. 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 Can you all hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I have the Reverend on the line.
Okay, Reverend, how are you?
I'm amazing. How are you today?
Dealing with some just technical stuff today because I have a new iPad. My iPad died when I was in New York. So there's some settings that need to be, honey, it has been like, I'm like on top of the phone I gotta buy. I'm like, every time you go into Apple, it is an expense. Let's put it that way. But, and they make you pay before you walk in the door. How about that? They're like, I don't want to see you until you've paid.
30 seconds.
Oh, it's the darndest thing. I mean, they are like, don't even talk to me. We need money.
We need
all of it right now. I was telling my mother, she looked at me, her eyes got big. I said, oh yeah. I said, so don't talk to me. I said, okay, thank you, because I know this is working. These jokes I want. Thank you. Let's have a great show. The sound is clear. All right.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Hey. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Tuesday, March 29, 2022. Santita Jackson coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. We got a lot to talk about today. Everyone is talking about Will Smith, Chris Rock, the Oscars, Jada Pinkett Smith, Regina Hall put her in it, Laverne Cox. They have all made comments about the state of Will and Jada Pinkett Smith's marriage. Well, they've been very forward with that, but we're going to talk about this. This is not going to be a gossipy conversation we're going to have about them today. It will be a healing conversation, a constructive conversation, an instructive conversation. Certainly that is the hope. We have Dr. George C. Fraser, one of the great inspirational speakers and thinkers of our time, who will be on with us today. Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams to talk to us about that today. Of course, Robert Patillo. But we're going to start off at the bottom of the hour talking about Virginia Thomas and Clarence Thomas and where all of this is going. Will there be an investigation into her actions around her activity supporting President Trump's attempts to remain in office and January 6th and all of that? And then we're going to talk to Dr. Shanina. First, we're going to talk with Dr. Shanina Knighton about what you need to do to protect yourself now that money is being taken out of COVID protections. Now, if you're uninsured, it's going to cost you to get tested. It's going to cost you to get tested. And believe me, there's going to be much more where that came from. What can you do to protect yourself? One thing that we have not discussed during this pandemic is infection prevention. And it can be prevented. It can be prevented. So we're going to talk about that with one of the world's leading infection and one of the few infection preventionists, Dr. Shanina Knighton. And of course, going to get some inspirational words from the brilliant, anointed Reverend Stephen Thurston of the Salem Baptist Church. He is their teaching pastor. So let's get to some of these headlines. Thank you, Coach May, for getting me up today. our college student who's going to be graduating soon. So proud of him. It's March 29, 2022. And I am Santita Jackson coming to you from the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. Let's get some of these headlines. It's like it's winter again in Chicago and in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and on the East Coast. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 42 degrees today. And guess what? Rain and snow. Oh, Minneapolis, St. Paul, showers. 40 degrees will be your high. No snow, thank goodness for you. The Bulls fell to the Knicks last night, 109 to 104. And we've got the Final Four set in women and men's college basketball March Madness. For the women, it's South Carolina, Stanford, UConn, perennial, as well, all these people are. They're just great programs, Stanford, and Louisville. On the men's side, Villanova, Kansas, UNC, and Duke. Cannot wait to see how all of that turns out. I'm going to be watching all of these games if I can. The Dow closed up 94 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed up 185 points. And the S&P 500 closed up 32 points. Ukraine peace talks are underway in Turkey, everybody. There are photos of the Russian and Ukrainian delegations that are meeting for peace talks in Istanbul. Let's hope that it works. It is a new round. Turkey is one of several nations, including Israel, China, and India, that have shown interest in mediating a resolution to this crisis. The Turkish president said he expects solid outcomes from the talks and wants an immediate ceasefire. Russian forces have largely stalled on the ground in all parts of Ukraine, but evacuations are underway in the city of Mariupol, where the mayor says Russia controls most of the points of exit. President Joe Biden has rolled out his budget proposal for fiscal year 2023. The proposal includes almost $7 billion to counter Russian aggression in the Ukraine, as well as an increase in military spending and more than $33 billion to support law enforcement and crime prevention. The plan also includes $26 billion for NASA, the largest request for science in the space agency's history, setting the stage for human exploration on Mars. Overall, the proposal would cut the federal budget by $1.3 trillion. In order to reach this massive cut, the proposal calls for a new minimum tax on billionaires. The new tax plan applies to anyone worth more than $100 million. That's 1/100th of 1% of American households. Lgbtq Rights Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has signed the controversial piece of state legislation dubbed the So Don't Say Gay bill by critics that bans certain instruction about sexual orientation and gender identity in the classroom. He says he wants children to be instructed, not indoctrinated, and that these matters should be left to parents. What do you think? The new law will go into effect in July and states that the classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate. What do you think about that, everybody? Call me, text me, 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. The January 6th investigation is on and cracking, everybody. The committee will seek an interview with conservative activist, the wife of Supreme Court Justice, indeed, he's the longest serving justice on the court now, Virginia Thomas, after it was reported that the committee has text messages 29 showing Thomas pleading with then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows to continue the fight to overturn the 2020 presidential election results. It seems that a lot turned on her admission in a news report that she had attended the January 6th rally, not the insurrection, but certainly the rally that led to that. Former President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is expected to appear before the House Select Committee this week, and the committee also unanimously voted yesterday to bring contempt charges against White House Deputy Chief of Staff under the Trump administration, Dan Scavino, and Trump's one-time trade advisor, Peter Navarro. Everybody. That wraps it up. Even though, of course, there's so much more in the news, but let us get to some of this good news with Pastor. That's right, teaching pastor from the Salem from the Salem Baptist Church here in Chicago. Indeed, it's the biggest Black church in the state of Illinois. Salem Baptist Church, of course, the House of Hope, and of course, who can forget New Covenant? It's one of our great historic churches and one of the biggest in the country, where your father and grandfather have been your grandfather was at the helm, your father's at the helm, and what a great tradition that the Thurstons have been able to give to our people. We need some good news today. Every time we turn around, Pastor Thurston, something crazy. I don't even know where to begin. Something crazy has happened. Talk to me. Is there any good news today?
With all the craziness that we face on a perpetual basis, the good news is you don't have to have an opinion. Listen, a friend reached out to me yesterday with a desire to discuss and dissect the now infamous interaction between Chris Rock and Will Smith during the Academy Awards on Sunday night. And he went on to express his opinion, and I listened graciously and patiently and intently. And after he was complete, he then asked me to share mine. Now, Santita, you know, I'm a man who has opinions. I've got loads of them. I even have an opinion on this situation, and I can't wait to hear the conversation that you're going to have with Dr. Frazier and Pastor Tisha in the upcoming moments. But last night, when he reached out to me and wanted my opinion, I didn't engage. My response to his request for my engagement was that everything doesn't have to be something. As I ended a conversation that had been beaten to death on my social media platform, a conversation that had been going on all day on every platform that I'm engaged in between Sunday evening and yesterday evening, it actually felt good kind of not to care, or maybe I can say it better this way, to care without feeling the need to share. And though it can feel taboo sometimes not to form and share opinions on the various matters that hit our news feeds on a daily basis, the reality is that it can be exhausting. Yeah, it's tempting to engage the lively debates going on in the comment section, up and down our feeds on social media. Our egos can sometimes drive the pressure to feel relevant and informed and intelligent, even when we know full well that we aren't, because we haven't done sufficient research and data investigation. But here's my question that I want to pose to everybody today. Are you chiming in because the topic, the issue, the subject matter is important to you? And your voice can actually move the conversation forward. Your voice can bring about healing, which is what you're going to do in your conversation on the topic today. Or are you chiming in because you're bored and you have nothing better to do with your time? Or because somebody ruffled your feathers by daring to have an opinion that's opposite of yours? Listen, I've got a ton of respect for people who like to share smart, well-informed opinions on important topics. That's why I tune into this radio station on a consistent basis to hear the Santita Jackson Morning Show. And I also have a ton of respect for people who know when to bow out of a debate that has nothing to do with them. It takes poise, restraint, and emotional intelligence to pick your battles. People are always trying to get me to engage in everything, to have an opinion about everything. And listen, I've recently engaged, or re-engaged rather, the practice of meditation. And in doing so, I'm reminded of the importance of allowing my thoughts to occur without immediately attaching judgment and consequence. And this helps me in acknowledging debates around me without always needing to add to the layer of the debate my own opinion. The good news is that it's possible to be informed and intelligent without chomping down on debate deployed by the latest hot button debate. Now, I'm not suggesting that we censor ourselves, avoid uncomfortable topics, or more unethical or dangerous discourse that needs to be shut down. But we should identify what's worth our energy and what's not. If our capacity for critical thought were to be viewed as a natural resource in limited supply, we wouldn't want to burn through our daily ration, weighing the pros and cons of matters that really don't matter in the grand scheme of life. So, if it's important to you, then go ahead and fight the good fight. And if you go down in the conversation, at least go down swinging. It's important to know, however, where you stand and to get loud when it really matters. But I want to encourage us today to choose our battles. Everything that pops up, we don't have to pop into. A vocal option on every hot topic isn't necessary. It just might drain you and put more stress in your life than necessary and needed. Good news is, it's cool to have an opinion. The great news is, you don't have to share it all the time. Hope everybody has an amazing balance of the day.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. You don't have, everything that comes up doesn't need to come out. At the risk of saying something stomach churning, Pastor, everything that comes out is sickness, right? I mean, it's it's really, you need to go to the restroom and relieve yourself. It's vomit. If it's just coming up and out of you, don't do that. Don't do that.
That's right.
Sometimes, and sometimes I think people really seeking validation, and I get it, but it's not always appropriate. Sometimes you just need to sit back. And then, which is why we're talking about Will and Jada and Chris Rock and the Oscars and so much today, because I needed a moment to marinate. I said, I've got to see what all of this is, because I didn't watch the Oscars. So then I dug and dug and dug so that I could go back and watch at least that portion of it and catch some of the red carpet, because there was so much that happened. There was so much that happened that I just wanted to get some. It was so much, and there's so much that's been happening around them over the past few years that I said, well, I think we need to cool our jets and let this be a teachable moment for everybody, So thank you for that. Thank you for that, everybody. Mirror Moments is his book. Where can we get your book? And so many of you have been getting it, and we thank you for supporting this wonderful, wonderful effort.
We do. It's available on my website. That website is Stephen with the PH, StephenJThurston.com. As soon as you go to the website, it's going to pop right up for you. You can grab it.
Amen to you. Sending you much love. Sending you much love. Pastor Stephen J. Thurston, when will you be preaching again at Salem?
I'm off for the next couple of weeks, so I'm going to take a break, and then I'll let you know when the next scheduled day is coming up. But you can catch me today on Facebook Live on my page, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm going to be raising the question, is your ego talking? We're going to be talking about talking my ego.
I think you're arcing back to what we're talking about today. Amen to that. Amen to that. On his Facebook Live page, everybody, let's talk. And you know what? We're talking with Dr. Shanina Knighton. Dr. Shanina Knighton. Dr. Deb couldn't be with us today, but Dr. Shanina Knighton is here, registered nurse, infection preventionist, research scholar at Case Western Reserve University. We were talking yesterday about uninsured Americans who will now have to pay for the PCR COVID-19 tests. And you can see the medical bills mounting up. All the things that we had when there was a declared pandemic, even though we're still in a pandemic, the government was paying for. And mind you, they've been paying the corporate world for a long time. But now you're going to have to pay out of pocket. That's what's going to be different. And in the meantime, we're seeing evidence of COVID everywhere. U.S. sewer data is warning of a new bump in COVID cases as they're watching more and more COVID gather in our sewage all across the country. But one of the things that we have not discussed, and we're so grateful to have had this woman with us in these next 6 minutes, I'm going to turn the mic over to her. Infection prevention, washing your hands properly. Do you know what, Dr. Knighton? Let me not belabor the point. Take it away. 5 minutes, they all belong to you.
Thank you and good morning. So one of the most important things that I think that we're forgetting is that, yes, equity has been an issue, but we have simple measures that we can take. And so, yes, Santita, you do think about the fact that, yes, it is found in people's sewage. What they do is they actually assess it, because what happens is people may not be aware But if someone has COVID, not only is it detectable through, let's say, the nose, but it is also detectable in fecal matter. So when people go to the bathroom, they're able to literally assess the sewage and find out like what levels it's detectable in. And so as a result of that, what happens is when they're assessing it, they can look at those levels and say like, hey, this particular area had this level of contamination that they spotted COVID, and this level had a higher level of contamination. So they've been monitoring that for some time now. Once they figured out they've been able to do it. This is something that's actually done for other diseases and conditions too. One of them even being infectious diarrhea for what's called C. diff or Clostridium difficile. So this isn't a new technique. It's just interesting that they're applying it to COVID and using it to be able to tell the story. And it's just simply because we do realize that not everyone was going to get tested. Not everyone was going to go seek some sort of treatment, but it helped to know how those numbers were looking. Now, the issue that I have is that even if you're looking at the sewage, even if you're seeing things are rising, I'm concerned that we're not hearing anything about, hey, not only are the numbers rising, but what is it that we should be doing right now? The issue that we have working against us is that if they're rolling back tests, if they're rolling back access, the issue then comes, now are they going to be talking about rolling back vaccines? Does it then mean where we had a government that sent out masks? Now is it that everyone doesn't have access to masks? You look at all of these protective measures, and so what I tell people is that even if, let's say you don't have a mask, you decide, hey, you know, I don't want to get 5 vaccines in a year. I understand it and I respect it. You ask yourself, is it a fine line of where you should be doing nothing or if you should be doing more? And that's the problem even right now with some of the guidelines. It's like we practically go from having strict guidelines to having absolutely none and can't figure out why the numbers are going up. And it's perplexing. Because we're talking about intelligent people. We're talking about experts. They can't figure out that just because we start seeing a glimmer of hope, when numbers going down, are we asking ourselves truly why? Okay? And in this particular instance, and I'll keep saying this, and it's not popular, when the numbers were going down, we have to remember that in January, they started giving boosters. They already told everybody that the boosters was going to last an average of what? 10 weeks. Now we're looking at March going into April, and everyone wants to know why the numbers are going up. Of course they're going up if those vaccines are wearing off. Of course they're going up if people aren't getting tested. Of course they're going up if people have in their mind that the pandemic is over. I always say, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Prepare your immune system. Meaning that yes, even though we're entering spring, allergies happen in spring. You don't know if people are coughing and sneezing from COVID, from a cold, or from allergies. So it's stay ready. Stay ready so you're prepared. Because otherwise, if you don't, you may be encountering any of those things. How do you do that? Make sure that you're cleaning your hands. You don't know if someone wipes their nose before they touch the surfaces that you'll touch. Wash your hands. You don't know if you're in a place where contamination exists. Environment is not something that has been emphasized greatly, but it is something that is very important. It is something that we all share in common. Our hands are the easiest way to contaminate ourselves and easily put us in a situation where we can pick up germs from the environment. So So when we look at these things, we ask ourselves, what are the simple things that we can do to make sure we're staying safe? I'm going to continue to share the message that hand hygiene is the first one.
Okay, hand hygiene is it. Please repost that video that you have that shows us how to wash our hands. I'm proud of myself, Dr. Knighton. I was out a couple of days ago, and a woman who was in the ladies' room with me asked me if I was a doctor or a nurse because of the way I washed my hands. Thank you, Dr. Knighton.
Yay! And I'm so happy to hear that.
Yay.
So yes, and people don't know, but only 3 to 6% of Americans do it correctly, and you could be one of them.
Now, mind you.
Remember, if you don't wash them correctly, then you didn't wash them at all.
Now, you know I wash my hands like 3 times, right? Okay, I know. Stop it. Just stop it. Stop it. And then when I got to the table, yes, I sprayed them with alcohol. I can't help it. You know, I walked out like I was a surgeon, walked into the surgical theater, arms up. Whoo, don't touch me. Oh, but everyone, we're going to repost that video so that you can know. She laughs at me. Can you believe it? But, you know, I'm trying to be careful, and we're trying to share these things with you because we're going to have to start paying, trust me, for vaccines. If you're going to start paying for tests, you're going to start paying for vaccines. You're going to start paying for a lot of things. And the insurance companies are really going to get in this. Let's talk about Virginia Thomas and Clarence Thomas. Where's all of this going? And then, of course, taking your questions and comments about Will and Jada Smith and Chris Rock and the Oscars. Will they take his Oscar from him? That's on the table, everybody. Back in just a minute. Dr. Knighton?
Yes.
Do you want to stay on so you can hear about Will and Jada in the next 30 minutes? Do you want us to call you back so you can listen?
Listen, I ain't gonna lie, I don't even want to hear it anymore. I don't.
You know what? But for me, it's like I was moved by something Dr. George Fraser said. He is really. He's an inspirational speaker. I mean, his latest book is Mission Unstoppable, Extraordinary. Yes, you know him. He's in Cleveland with you. He's going to be on today. And I was really moved. Really? Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, he and my father go back more than 50 years. And I was really moved by his post because it was so mature. And it was so needed. Because I said, you know, I want to... I said, this needs to be a healing moment, a teachable moment for all of us. And, you know, I've heard a lot of Black women say, you know, he was defending his queen. I hear you. And, you know, I don't know where this comes from, but I guess I just grew up with Black men who opened doors for me, who defended and who took care of me. So, I mean, this whole narrative about Black men being less than gentlemanly and less than protective and less than manly is something that's lost on me. And it's offensive to me. It's offensive. That having been said, I think women have to raise our standards too. Women have to be accountable. You're not just a queen because you were born, okay? You're not. And so there were a lot of jokes that have been told about them on the red carpet. Not too long ago, Laverne Cox cracked on their entanglements. Regina Hall made a joke at the Oscars about their open marriage. I'm not being judgmental, but I'm saying there's some judgments you need to make. And Black women have traditionally had to protect our men because the world is after them. And he laughed initially because he knows these are things you have to take on the chin. But when he saw his wife's reaction, then he jumped into another mode. But it hurt him and them. So you got to be real careful. You know, you have to protect your man because he protects you. And by protecting you, you protect him, he protects you, and that protects the whole franchise. Now they've taken a hit and they're talking about taking his Oscar from him. No, they might not.
It's interesting because I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. I was just thrown off, like, with the whole fact of the speech of, like, privacy and people don't know what we go through and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just say the same way in healthcare where I got to put my neck and my license on the line, even if I'm short on staff and all of that. Because I ain't going to lie, Santita, one of these days we got to talk about that nurse that was indicted in 10 minutes.
Well, you know what? Send that to me. Send that to me. I've got to come up. But send that to me. Send me a text and let me know if you want to come back so you can listen to Dr. Frazier. I've got to come up now. Sending you much love, girly. And send me that video again. Send me that. Okay. On hand washing. We're going to repost that, everybody. Ooh. What you say? Did they?
30 seconds.
Okay. Did they take Roman Polanski's award? Ooh, Renee, you always cut. But make sure you call back. You know the rules don't apply to Will. Mm-hmm. You know he's got to be perfect. But there's some things you got to be careful with all of this, right? We have to be very, very careful. So let's just cool our jets. We'll see. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, March 29th, 2022. It's Tuesday. I'm coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Everybody like and share. But we're also on YouTube, on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. I want to know what your thoughts are about Virginia Thomas and Clarence Thomas. What do you think about that? Do you think that she should be subpoenaed and brought before the House committee? Should she be investigated? Should we be considering impeachment? Are Supreme Court justices allowed to do anything they want? Are there any rules in place to stop their supreme power? You can impeach a president, you can remove a president, you can impeach or remove a senator or U.S. representative. On every level, state and federal and local levels, you can remove people. But it seems like the Supreme Court is something that we don't quite want to touch. They're not sacrosanct. They are justices. Well, we don't even call them judges. We call them justices. So there's a lot going on here. And so I wanted to ask two of the most knowledgeable people I know. Indeed, we've got attorney Robert Patillo, the director of Rainbow Push Atlanta, host of his own show on WAOK, the iconic radio station in Atlanta, every Sunday from 1 to 4. He's been doing morning duty. Now you know how it feels. It doesn't make me feel good, my dear friend. But attorney Jean Myra, she was with us just a few weeks ago. Indeed, there has really been no greater human rights lawyer, voting rights lawyer in our time. That was one of the things my father said about her last night when we were talking actually about you. International Association of Democratic Lawyers, National Lawyers Guild. She's been on the front lines of our struggles for more than 50 years, and we just thank God for her. So let's just start with you, Attorney Myra, because I've called you several times because I said, you know what, I just want to understand this process. I'm just a layperson. Virginia Thomas and her actions, are they disturbing? Were they appropriate? Why are we just talking about this now? It's been, it's been more than a year. It's been more than a year. What do you make of her actions? And what do you make of her husband's actions? She said she needed to talk to her best friend. And they famously refer to each other as each other's best friends. Wow. It just doesn't, it looks like ethically they both crossed lines. Attorney Myra.
Well, I would agree with you there. I think the information in these emails or text messages are very disturbing. They really pull back the curtain on a lot of what was going on during, before, after, and during the election, and during the January 6th events, which Ginny Thomas attended. And it really brings into question any ruling that Clarence Thomas makes that in any way relates to the political process during 2020 and beyond. And I am very concerned about not just the impropriety of it. There's appearance of impropriety, and there is the actual impropriety of a sitting justice whose wife has an interest in an outcome of a case, sitting there and making a decision on things that affect not just small matters. This is the matter of saving our democracy. So, of course, the minimum you should do, the minimum, is to recuse himself from any case that involves these matters. On the other hand, obviously there are people who are like Ilhan Omar who are calling for his impeachment. I think there's a lot that has to be looked into. One of the problems here is that the laws that govern judicial misconduct, which is codified in the federal code, doesn't really apply to Supreme Court justices, in part because there's nobody there to review their behavior except for their own consciences. And I really am sometimes wondering whether or not some of them have one.
Well, but how can that be? I mean, we've only had one Supreme Court justice, if memory and my readings of history serve me correctly, Samuel Chase in 1804. And mind you, the Senate cleared him. You're supposed to have good behavior, are you not, Attorney Myra? I mean, you've got to rely on their consciences, and Justice Thomas refused to recuse himself from a case that involved his wife directly. I find it hard to believe that he did not know that she had texts that were in that tranche of information.
I'm sure he knew. I can't. I wasn't born, as they say, yesterday. I think most people don't, look at those texts and say, how could he not know? They're best friends. But obviously, the impact of this is not just, questions about Mr. Justice Thomas, but it has to do with the legitimacy of the courts and how people feel about having their disputes resolved by the top court in the land, and thinking that there's going to be anything but a political decision as opposed to a decision based on the merits. Here's the problem. I mean, the court has been losing credibility for a long time, this court, especially since the Supreme Court gave George Bush the election in 2000.
Yes.
And there's, I think back to the statement that Justice Sotomayor made in the argument on the abortion case, where she basically said there shouldn't be any differences in the way the court justices interpret the law based on the politics of the time, and wondered about the stench that the court, whether or not the court was going to shoulder the stench that would come from overruling the 50-year precedent of Roe v. Wade. And that's the kind of thing that, I worry about, is the stench of the Supreme Court making decisions and having the people of this country not have the kind of sense of legitimacy of the court. And that's really the problem. People often have a vaulted view of the court system. Many people who are caught up in it don't have that, but many people who think that, well, they need to have their day in court, think it's going to be fair, and this sometimes it's not. And often, how much you, what do they say, the golden rule, those who have the gold rule, but it's oftentimes, and most people know that those who have resources, the courts look differently on than those who don't. But I have to go back to the basic point. As a practicing attorney, I have to go into court every day. I have to think that the arguments that I make or that my fellow attorneys make on our side, that the judges will have an open mind and think about their decisions, and that we can prevail. But when something like this happens, it takes away people's feeling of confidence in the judiciary, and that's not a good thing.
Attorney Robert Patillo, your thoughts about this? I mean, and you, of course, have your radio show on WAOK. What are people feeling? What are they saying about this? I mean, Attorney Myra makes the point that since 2000, people have had a really not great feeling about the court. They felt that it's become very politicized, or maybe it was that all along. We just got a chance to see it. I mean, what do you make of all of this? What do Justice Thomas's actions say about him? About him as a jurist? And all of the spaces that he's been given, what does it say about the court?
Well, I think what we've seen, particularly since Hillary changed the rules on Senate confirmation right around a decade ago, is the supreme politicization of the court. Because if you remember back when, let's say, Justice Ginsburg was up for confirmation, we would see Supreme Court justices, no matter who they were, unless they were just outside the ballpark, like Robert Bork or something along those lines, or Eric Myers, they would be confirmed 98-0, 99-0 in the coming out of the Senate. There wouldn't be these intense grilling of these nominees the way that get completely personal and the grandstanding. I think the only time something like that probably happened before that was Robert Bork, Clarence Thomas in 1991. But when we saw Judge Jackson, soon to be Justice Jackson, simply just letting random people say random stuff about her with no weight or evidence or credibility, that's not something that we saw previously. So the court has become more politicized. They're less of a neutral judicial body now, as they are just simply another co-equal political branch. I remember I was there for the Justice Roberts hearings in Washington, D.C., and he said, I'm an umpire. I'm here to call the balls and strike. That's not the way that it is anymore. What Clarence Thomas has done is allowed himself to be used as a political pawn for decades now. And the only difference now is that his wife was sloppy enough to leave a paper trail where we can actually investigate this. What I think most people want to see is her pulled before the January 6th committee. And I would love to see discovery. I would love to see them being able to subpoena her email records, subpoena her text messages, and find out who knew what when. Because I very highly doubt, because Clarence Thomas come out with a statement saying, well, me and my wife don't discuss politics. I very highly doubt they got up that morning and he said, well, I'm headed to the gym to get some coffee and a bagel all the way out the door. And she says, I'm going to go overthrow the government. I'll let you know what happens. We might need you to rule on this a little bit later on. I don't think there's a logical way in which they have not discussed this. And then, as we mentioned, when it came down to turning over the records, it was an 8-1 vote in the Supreme Court. Justice Thomas being the one vote that they dissented. We saw the memo for the Trump campaign on how to steal the election, and they said they needed Mike Pence to refuse to certify the electors. Then they will throw it to the Supreme Court, and Virginia Thomas made it very clear that she was in full support of them. But was Clarence Thomas in on this deal also? Was he the one trying to make sure that he could ensure that if it did get to the Supreme Court, they would indeed stand on the side of Trump? So I think that we're going to have to give the information a full, clear hearing of what's going on and find out exactly what he knew and what he knew it. And if there was one text message indicating that he knew what was going on or had any connection to it, then he has to resign from the court, or we're going to have to see an impeachment proceeding against him, because he simply put cannot have a Supreme Court justice in any way materially contributing to a insurrection and attempt to overthrow the United States government that undermines our entire system of democracy and the separation of powers that we believe in.
Attorney Jean Myra, why is it important that the actions of Virginia Thomas and Justice Thomas be investigated regarding this particular matter? Because we didn't do that in 2000, which I felt was, when Bush v. Gore, I felt that did enormous damage to the Republic, enormous damage. And I don't think we've recovered from that. We don't even have the discussion about that. But one good thing did come out. You had Justice Scalia, who did explicitly state that we do not have the explicit federally protected right to vote. It was true. But that having been said, why is it important that we look at this particular instance and the actions of these persons now?
Well, I think it's very important. I think the point that my colleague Robert Patillo made are excellent, and I think sunshine is the best disinfectant. I think we need to know all of the details. I mean, my concern sometimes is there are groups of people in this country who live by alternative facts, and no matter what the facts show, they'll find some reason not to believe it. But I think that for most people in America, knowing whether or not, as Mr. Pillow said, on the morning of January 6th, whether or not Clarence Thomas knew that his wife was going to the, quote, Stop the Steal rally. I'm sure he did. And I think we have to know more in terms of how he saw himself as possibly part of the overall effort to, quote, Stop the Steal. Because all of his actions are consistent with his wife's statements in her text messages. Maybe not that in barge outside of Guantanamo, but all of the other statements about stop this big heist, etc. So I think it is really important to shine some sunlight on all of what he knew when he and his actions.
Let me go to Tim. Tim, what's on your mind today? Thank you for calling in.
Good morning. I think that what is happening with Justice Thomas hopefully will just go away. I mean, his wife should be held accountable for being a Trump supporter. Okay, I mean, everybody in the studio with you and everybody on your call are Democrats, so I understand your opinions on why this is a horrible thing. And the other thing I called in about was parents having the authority to have power over what their children are taught in preschool, kindergarten, up through 6th grade. I would say up to 9th grade, but I'm sure that will offend some progressives. Mm-hmm. But so those two things, I think, leave this Supreme Court justice alone. Every one of the Supreme Court justices in my lifetime are now political activists. They're not just judges; they're political party activists, and it's a very sad fact of life that we're going to have to live with. Well, the people that vote are going to have to vote our conscience, and that's the way it goes.
Well, Tim, I will say this to you. I can say this to you. I'm not approaching this as a Democrat because I am an independent Democrat. There's some Republicans that I've supported down through the years. The Republic is more important to me than Republicans. The democracy is more important to me than being a Democrat. I think that there's some issues that are transpartisan. And when you are elected to office, when you become president, I don't want a Democratic president. I don't want a Republican president. I want a president of the United States, someone who's going to treat everyone fairly and ensure that we are all able to enjoy the common good. That's what's key. So I don't think anyone here on this call is approaching this in a partisan way. What we're looking at is what I think, Attorney Myra, is a severe danger to the republic, to the democratic aspects of it, the democratic aspirations of it, because that's not where we are yet. I think that this is much bigger than party. What say you, Attorney Myra?
Oh, I agree that it's much bigger. That's why I emphasize the legitimacy of the court, because people do, in order to preserve the democracy, the people have to believe in the legitimacy of their institutions. And one of the problems has been there's over the last period is an attempt to undermine people's faith in our institutions, and whether it's the judiciary or legislative branches, there's been an attempt to say that government can't work for people, and that's a problem that has is part and parcel of the whole delegitimization of democracy.
Robert Patillo, your thoughts? Is this something that is this about being a Republican, a Democrat? Of course, Clarence Thomas was appointed by a Republican president. Ketanji Brown Jackson, hopefully she will be elevated to the court, a Democratic president. I mean, is this about party, or is this about really protecting the republic?
Well, I think it's less so about party and more so about what is right and wrong, and the legitimacy of the government in general. Republicans and Democrats view their political leadership very differently, if you notice. Republicans fall in love with their leadership. You see the dedication that Republicans have, let's say the former President Trump. There was a big rally here in Georgia over the weekend where President Trump drew, hundreds, if not 1,000 people to Commerce, Georgia, in cold weather to have a rally for David Perdue and Vernon Jones and Herschel Walker. And the MAGAs were out there, they're chanting and they're wearing the hats, and it's almost like a rock concert, it's mental for religious event. There's a level of love and dedication and belief in these individuals. Democrats, or particularly black folks in the Democratic Party, it's more so just a marriage of convenience. Not so much that we loved you, it's just you were the best we could do, and our parents kind of liked you. So we're not at that into it. So we don't have that same level of love and dedication. So often we're as critical of our leadership as we are critical of the Republican Party. But to have a marriage of convenience, it's the best we can do. So we're going to try to make it work as long as we have to split these bills in this house and feed these kids. That's kind of the way our marriages work. So when it comes to Clarence Thomas, it's less so a matter of, it's partisan politics. It's more so you cannot have somebody who in any way, shape, or form materially contributed to or knew about and did not do anything to stop an attempted overthrow of the United States government. We talk about her participation in the rally, but look at the text messages between her and Mark Meadows. It went far deeper than that. He was deeply entrenched in the strategy that the Trump team was using in order to try to overthrow the election and overthrow the United States government. Well, what would have happened if she was successful? We would have had to have a convention of the states. We would have had to have a rewriting of the United States Constitution in order to justify what they were attempting to do. You will see nothing less than if they were successful. The wholesale destruction of the United States government, the destruction of the United States Constitution, and the end of the Second American Republic, and a return to the rise of the Third American Republic, if we will still even be a republic thereafter. And I know it sounds hyperbolic to some people, but when we talk to French folks, they're all the French Republic for a reason. So don't think these things just immortal and eternal. These things are very much fungible, and we have to defend our democracy.
Attorney Jean Myra, I've got a minute. It belongs to you.
Well, I agree with Robert. I mean, this what happened on January 6th came very close to setting aside this election. And we shouldn't be in that kind of position where a free and fair election depends potentially on the whims of one man. In this case, what they wanted Mike Pence to do. The whole we have to think very strongly about what is it that we think the Supreme Court needs to do, and what the government needs to do with respect to investigating what happened here. It's not just, I agree, it's not just a rally. There was a whole series of things that have been going on that have been mapped out now by Eastman and all of the people in that cabal to try to overturn a free and fair election. A free and fair election which these folks were upset about because many of the states where Biden won were a result of votes that came in late from big cities where the majority of the votes came from African American and people of color. And that's another aspect of this where the concern that Ginny Thomas had and others had about losing Donald Trump as president had, I think, very much is tied up with the history of racism in this country.
You know, everybody, we got to talk about this, and we're going to continue this discussion and continue to watch this. Will and Jada Smith and Chris Rock and the Oscars, will they take Will Smith's Oscar from him? Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Attorney Myra. Attorney Myra.
Yes.
Thank you so. Oh, not just you were great. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Yeah. You'll do. I mean, you gotta be kidding me. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're okay. I think you earned your law degree. I don't think it was given to you. Oh my gosh. But we've got to come back and talk about this and then look at some of these key decisions, like Roe v. Wade and other decisions that could be overturned or gutted by this court. I'd like to go through that with you, you know, which is what I was sharing with you last night. There's so much that we take for granted. I mean, I grew up in a very, very different world than you did, and that my mother did. And the generation behind me has as well. And this court is poised to overturn all of that.
I know. I thought the young lawsuit that, you know, all the stuff that you're learning today, I have to unlearn.
Oh my gosh.
So my law school experience was different. You know, I came up in the Warren court, which is very different.
Not I.
Anyway.
No. Oh,
Right.
I missed that one. So, you know. Oh gosh, I missed all of that, and I feel it. But when Reagan won, my parents said, "Now you all are about to get a real indoctrination." Partially into what I grew up with. I mean, and think about it. Reverend ran for president during the Reagan era. You know, and that is, you know, and that's very telling. So, well, I'm going to let you go, but you'll be hearing from me again. Ooh.
Okay. Well, also we have affirmative action on the chopping block too. So
Okay. Well, let me write
I have
that.
a couple of years history of handling that, working on that.
Well,
issue.
I'm going to reach you. I'm going to call you about that because I'd like for you to talk about that because, you know, most people don't know that white women were the greatest beneficiaries. And we've just turned this into this pejorative term instead of, you know, like celebrating having qualified people be put in the line. I'll tell people in a minute, I'm an affirmative action baby. Thank God for that. But I tell you what, I'm qualified. I'm not a legacy baby at all. And there's nothing wrong with that if you're qualified.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of it's tied in. Affirmative action is sort of tied into the whole question of critical race theory also. Which
Absolutely.
is the understanding of how the racism works institutionally and systemically as opposed to only being individual villains and victims. So, I don't need to tell you that.
No.
I already know that.
No. But I really want you back to talk about that because I think it's very important that we go through these issues. So you'll be hearing from me the next day or so.
My former, I lived in Detroit for 31 years. I don't know if you know that, but and my congressman from most of that time was John Conyers. Actually, for all of that time. And we worked very close together. And when he was head of the Congressional Black Caucus, he got the Black Caucus to submit an amicus brief in the Adaki case, arguing that the 13th Amendment was the constitutional basis for affirmative action. And Herb Reed, as Howard, and Arthur Canary, who was one of my mentors, wrote that brief. And it was a very interesting time.
I miss him.
And then several years later.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sure you have to go.
No. But I'd love to have you on to talk about John Conyers one day. Because boy, when they put him out, we lost a whole lot. What a great man.
Yeah, well, I used to be in a women's group at Detroit with Lonnie Grenier.
And God rest her. Oh my gosh, God rest her. Oh my, God rest her soul.
Yeah.
Oh.
Excuse me, Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Can you send me Pastor Williams' number?
I'm sorry. Let me send that to you right now. Okay. I'm going to send that. And I am going to, excuse me. Thank you. I'm rushing to the next segment. I apologize for that.
All right. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Bye-bye. Here we go.
1 minute.
Okay, I'm sending it to you right now. We have Mr. Frazier up.
Yep.
Dr. Frazier, hold on one moment. Let me give this to you. I'm sending it to you right now. Okay, just send it to you.
I'll give her a call during the headlines.
Okay, fantastic. And of course, during the when I do the live read.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you still want me to call Chappelle today?
Yes.
You were saying like her voice is out.
Well, maybe not, because she's been under the weather. She has been under the
Should I
weather.
just not call her then?
Well, you can call her and see if she's up for it. I don't know.
All right, 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Frazier?
Yes, ma'am.
So glad that I'm so glad. My father sends his best regards to you. I told him you were going to be on my show last night. He said, why hasn't he been on mine? I said, I have to. Look, that's on me. I'm the executive producer and producer of it, so I will do that. It's on Sunday mornings. I'm going to bring you on. Well, I can't believe George hasn't been on my show. I said, oh, goodness.
Jackson Show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Tuesday, March 29, 2022. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. We were Air America, but today we're coming to you from the heartland, Chicago's progressive talk. Everybody spread the word, alternative media. Well, really, this is progressive media, and we give you the opportunity to hear all sides, and certainly you hear that on the Santita Jackson Show. I want to send out much love to my home in the north, AM 950 radio in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Chad Larson, everybody sending you much love today. Let's meet me on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, my official Facebook page, and on my YouTube channel, The Santita Jackson Show. Everyone who's watching today, please like and share, as we talk about Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith, Chris Rock, the Oscars, and just where we are culturally and where we are emotionally. There's just so much that one could read into that incident at the Oscars on Sunday night. And we want to have a healing, constructive, instructive conversation about this. This is not about gossip, everybody. These are real people's lives. You know, my father often says that there is a lot of private pain in public life. You don't know what people have left, what might have happened in the car on the way over. You don't know what kind of home people have. You don't know. There's so much that we don't know. But the Smiths have been very public about a lot of their struggles. And I think that we have to really look at all of that. Those struggles help to contextualize, I think, what happened on Sunday night. And we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it. It's a teachable moment for everybody. So we've got some of the great voices, indeed, one of the leading voices. In fact, he is really the inspiration for this segment. I'm about to bring him up in a couple of minutes. Dr. George C. Fraser, best-selling author, one of the most beloved inspirational speakers and teachers in the world today. He's written 6 best-selling books, and I urge you to get the latest one, all of them. They're all great. But Mission Unstoppable, Extraordinary Stories of Failures, Blessings, everybody. He co-wrote that, of course, with the great Les Brown. So let's get to some of these headlines, and we can talk about Will and Jada Pinkett Smith and Chris Rock and so much going on, everybody. Tuesday, March 29, 2022. Let's get to some of these headlines. In Chicago, 42 degrees, rain and snow. Yes, winter returneth. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 40 degrees, showers. The Knicks were triumphant over the Bulls last night, 109-104. And the Final Four for the men and women, the women and the men in college basketball, well, it's set, and we got to get ready, everybody. And on the women's side, it's South Carolina, Stanford, UConn, and Louisville. No surprises there, really. And then, of course, on the men's side, Villanova, Kansas, UNC, and Duke. Who will triumph, everybody? We cannot wait to see. The Dow closed up 94 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed up 185 points. And the S&P 500 closed up 32 points. What is going on in Russia and Ukraine? Well, guess what? They are having peace talks, everybody. Of course, led by Turkey, but China and Israel and India have shown interest in mediating a resolution to this invasion. They want an immediate ceasefire so they can get on about the business of peace. President Joe Biden has rolled out his budget proposal for fiscal year 2023. The proposal includes almost $7 billion with the B dollars to counter Russian aggression in the Ukraine, as well as an increase in military spending and more than $33 billion in support of law enforcement and crime prevention, according to the CNN report. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has signed the controversial piece of state legislation dubbed the, quote, "Don't Say Gay," close quote, bill by critics that bans certain instruction about sexual orientation and gender identity in the classroom. The new law will go into effect in July and states that, quote, "classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards." A lot is happening in the January 6th investigation, everybody. The committee will now seek an interview with conservative activists, the wife of the Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, Virginia Thomas, after it was reported that the committee has 29 text messages showing Mrs. Thomas pleading with then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows to continue the fight to overturn the 2020 presidential results. And those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. But you know what? We've been talking about trying to get you to move into financial freedom. What about home ownership? Is that a dream that is beyond you? It should not be. If you want to purchase a new home, if you want to refinance your existing home, if you want to secure a VA loan, a reverse mortgage, if you want to establish credit, clean up your credit, lower or obliterate your credit card bills, you need to call Team Hochberg. Call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com, 56david.com. Here's what you'll do. You will sit with them and tell them your situation. And then they will work with you to establish a program for you to eliminate your credit card debt. And they will also establish a program for you to get a loan for your home. They can really help you to come into financial freedom. 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. Chuck, a Navy veteran, married his wife Patty for many, many years. They were retired, but they were barely making it on their pensions. She called to consolidate their first and second mortgages and $30,000 of credit card debt. And you know about that credit card debt. Many people are even shopping for their groceries on their credit cards. Well, Team Hochberg jumped in. They got them a cash out VA loan and reduced their monthly payment over $500 a month, more than $6,000 a year they were saved. So before calling Team Hochberg, their backs were against the wall. After sitting with them in a free interview and then establishing a relationship with Team Hochberg, they were able to come out of this financial hole and into the light of financial freedom. So we want that for you. Call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com, 56david.com. Believe me, there is no problem that is too hard for them to resolve. They have heard it all, everybody. So call 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or 56david.com and get on the road to financial freedom. The slap heard round the world, everybody. That's what they're calling what happened on Sunday night with Will Smith, when after hearing a joke about his wife, about her looking like G.I. Jane, although everyone does agree that she looks absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful, beautiful woman. But she does have alopecia. But over the past few years, their lives have been in the spotlight. Their personal lives have been in the spotlight. So they have really been the subject of a lot of discussion, and they've been the subject of a lot of jokes on many different platforms. So one would expect Chris Rock, one of the biggest comedians of our generation, to not miss the opportunity to say something about Will and Jada Pinkett Smith. And of course, he has a history of making a lot of jokes about them. But so do others. Regina Hall, who was one of the hosts of the evening, she made a comment about their open marriage. Yes, she did. She even invited him onto the stage. She was looking for single men. She said, well, Jada won't mind. You can come up here with me, Will. And they laughed about it. Initially, the joke that Chris Rock made about Jada Pinkett Smith, well, he laughed about it. Whatever his personal feelings were, he did laugh initially. But when he caught his wife's expression, which was a scowl, she was upset by it, her rolled eyes, he quickly shifted gears, and we were off to the races. And he got up and he slapped Chris Rock in the mouth, and then he continued. People didn't know what to make of that. They thought maybe this was a staged moment. And then he went back to his seat and shouted from his seat, rather uncharacteristically, for what we know of him publicly. He said, keep my wife's name out of your effing mouth. And he said that twice. It was quite a moment. And it was a painful moment because many people expected, as did happen, this man to get the Oscar. There have only been 5 Oscars in the acting category given to Black actors in the history of the Academy. And so when he would have been the 5th, and joining Denzel and Sidney Poitier and Halle Berry and Whoopi Goldberg and Hattie McDaniel, of course. So what happened, everybody? Well, I tell you, I was struck by these words from Dr. George Fraser, indeed one of the great teachers of our age. He's the chairman and CEO of Fraser.net, He has wonderful conferences in which you are really encouraged to grow, not just economically, but emotionally and spiritually. And he has quite a life story. 6 best-selling books, Success Runs in Our Race, Click, and most recently, Mission Unstoppable, everybody. Mission Unstoppable. Extraordinary Stories of Failures, Blessings. Oh, wow. This could be applied here. And of course, he wrote that with the great Les Brown. He's been so many places, and we're so excited to have him here. I'm so honored indeed. He got the 2016 award, the President's Lifetime Achievement Award from President Obama, and it was well deserved. But of course, we've got Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, brilliant anointed pastor from the First Baptist Church in Bridgehampton, New York. One of the few women, certainly African American women, to be in the pulpit as the pastor of a church in the United States of America. And of course, Robert Patillo, Southeastern Regional Director and radio host from WAOK in Atlanta, stayed with us. But we're going to let the words and the thoughts of Dr. Frazier lead us off, because they moved me yesterday, I must say. He wrote, I watched the Oscars because for the first time in the 93 years of the Oscars, they had their first Black director and 2 awesome Black men competing for Best Actor. Plus the movie King Richard about Venus and Serena Williams was up for the Best Picture. So he said, I got my popcorn and settled in for a classy night of elegant speeches like Poitier would give, and Denzel and Viola Davis. He said what we all got was a ghetto version of a Black on Black crime and a generations old, really Black tropes, everybody. He said, Will walked onto the global stage and it just degenerated from there. It degenerated from there. And he talked about Jada Pinkett Smith. And mind you, we are not here to rain down condemnation on anyone. But as we're talking about saving the Black queens, everybody, and I've been hearing a lot about that, you know, Black women have to have accountability. Being born female does not make you a queen. It's your behavior, it's your values, it's all of that. So, Dr. Frazier, let me let you just go on and explain how you felt, and particularly as a man who's been married more than 50 years, and someone who has really, you've had to climb up the rough side of the mountain. You've been in foster care, you've been orphaned, you have built a life, and you've used all of the pain in your life to make us better and to build us up. Please take it away.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be with you. It's so good to hear your voice. Always your point of view. It is always elegant and eloquent and fair. And I love you for that. Just continue. Please continue. Your voice is extraordinarily powerful and important. And I think in many ways, as I just listened to you these last few minutes, it soothes the savage beast in us. I was very shocked and obviously disappointed in the behavior of toxic masculinity that our good brother Wilson showed on Sunday night. But to be fair, you know, who knows what Will's emotional state was Sunday night. His angst sitting on the cusp of achieving a long dream. Who knows what Jada had told him about the last time Chris made her, and you'll refer to this, made her the butt of an Oscar joke when he said that Jada boycotting the Oscars is like me boycotting Rihanna's panties. Who knows what pain her alopecia had caused in their relationship. But again, bottom line, still what happened Sunday was it based on Black men perpetrating violence on another Black man. Was also disturbed by many responses from our sisters who called him a hero, who protected his wife. I've been married to the same sister, Hygiene, for 50 years, and I absolutely understand and grasp the importance of us protecting hearings to her being selected to the Supreme Court. That was class. That was elegance. That was the kind of intelligence, emotion, intelligence we are capable of demonstrating. But what also surprised me is for years I've been following Will Smith. He's all over social media. I had never seen the piece that he had done that was not inspiring. He was not quoting Plato or Confucius or Rumi or talking about righteousness and growth. I love this man because of who I felt that he was. I am praying to God, and I believe that he is dealing with some issues now. Because it's never one thing that brings one to scream and to say what he said on a public forum as global as the Academy Awards. We don't know why he snapped. So as I've thought about this deeply, Santita, I am thinking that this is a one-off. There was something going on. Will Smith's mind that we don't know and don't comprehend that made him snap. And it's a mental issue. I still believe he's going through things in his very, very complicated marriage. And I forgive him. I think it's a one-off. He and Chris Rock did public apologies on Instagram yesterday. I'm sure you saw. And both of them were very, very contrite. And basically said that they were wrong. There was nothing right about what either of them did, except how it was handled. And, I expressed this idea of emotional intelligence because in addition to building, cultivating, nurturing relationships, because we cannot get through life alone. This is biblical. This is not something Dr. Fraser made up. John 5:30 is one of my favorite quotes in the Bible. It's a direct quote from Jesus Christ. There are 800,000 words in the Bible, Santita, and only 1,200 words are direct quotes from Jesus Christ. And it simply says, and Jesus said, I of my own self can do nothing. Now this was Jesus Christ, the Son of God. He couldn't get it done on his own by himself in a vacuum. He needed other people. He had 12 disciples on journey. So we all need people. We are communal people. We cannot do our lives in a vacuum. So we must cultivate, nurture, and build relationships. That's one side of the coin. The gospel I've been preaching for 40 years. The other side of the coin, especially for us, is developing our emotional intelligence. And what is that in brief? It is the having control over the 5 most important emotions in our body, because organically we react to everything emotionally first. So unless you can control these emotions, happiness, sadness, fear, and shame, unless you can, and anger, unless you can control these emotions, what we saw on Sunday night is an exact example of how we potentially can respond to things. So on the bad side of the emotional intelligence scale would be Will Smith, right? Violence is not the answer, right? It is seldom the answer to anything. And the other words. He gathered himself. He made a small joke of it. And he went on and did his work and then left. That is how we, as best as we can, and everybody is different.
Yes.
But that is what we must understand. We must control our emotions. I mean, it is very difficult living a public life. Your father knows this. You know this. I know this. You are susceptible to all kinds of critique and criticism.
Yes.
And if you let that determine your life, you will be a mental wreck. So we must learn to control our emotions. And I said in my piece that I wrote, I will forever use when I talk about emotional intelligence publicly, that night as an excellent example of the worst in emotional intelligence, the verbal and physical violence without thought, and composure when is heat upon you. So,
No, stay right there.
and I don't consider his protection of his wife that way heroic by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, and I think we need to question how she handled it. You know, Robert Williams makes a point, and I want you to speak to that when we get on the other side. Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams and Robert Patillo talking with Dr. George C. Fraser, one of the great teachers of our time. You got to get the book, Mission Unstoppable, Extraordinary Stories of Failure's Blessings. It's applicable at this time. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Look, I had to point Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams to you immediately. I said, this is the first bit of sanity I've heard all day. And I can now exhale, which is why I called you. Because Dr. Fraser, I heard so many women, so many people say, you know, he's protecting the Black queen. I said, stop. You know, I'll tell you, what my mother said to my sister and I. She said, do you want to know why I was so hard on you growing up? And we were like, oh, please do tell. She said, because, you know, the whole idea of the fairy tale is a lie, and you have been ill served by it. She said, the family is on you. You set the temperature in your home. You're the one. And you know what? When I was growing up, my father said to me, as much as I love you, your mother, she is the woman who can teach you about womanhood. He said, as he said, Sandy, he said, baby, Sandy Boogie, that was one of my nicknames. He said, yeah, I know it sounds crazy. That's my daddy. He said, you know, your mother has so much strength. And out of all of the people I've known, no one is of greater character. So I need you, even as you're experiencing these adolescent growing pains, you need her. And I've seen my mother absorb things publicly. I've seen my father absorb things publicly. But it's my mother who would set the tone, Dr. Fraser. She set the tone. She set the tone. And I felt that Jada Pinkett Smith should have set another tone on Sunday night. I really do. I really do. I really do.
I've lived with the Black queen, Georgia, for 50 years. We were watching this, and there would have been no way on God's earth that she would have allowed me to get out of that chair and do that. There was just no way it would have happened. As she seen me come up with that chair, she would have tackled me like a left tackle on a football game. There's just no question about it. It wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen because she knows in her heart of right, as a God-fearing woman, this is not right. Right? And she would have absorbed whatever insult might have been thrown at her. She would have smiled, and she would have brushed it off of her shoulder. Right?
That's right.
And how women are gifted. There's no question about it. And yes, we must protect them in every sane and civil way in our heart.
Oh, there's no
And
question.
so I hear you, and I love where you're going. I love what you're saying. I love this conversation. I'm so anxious to hear what the pastor has to say.
Oh, you're going to love her. I can't wait for you all to connect. You need to have her speaking at your conference because she is a powerhouse. Whew.
I understand.
She's a powerhouse.
I'm feeling it.
She,
On the radio.
you, I promise you. Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, Dr. George Fraser.
Yes. Good morning, Dr. Fraser.
Good morning, my dear. Thank you for being with us today.
20 seconds.
And of course,
I just ordered your book.
oh yeah. Look, I just need to get mine autographed. How about that? I did a reorder, and I ordered about 10 of the Mission Unstoppables so I could send them to some friends. But and attorney Robert Patillo, brilliant. He's a Southeastern West Head.
Just as a heads up too, I have Chappelle on as well.
Okay.
Your library.
Okay, very good. Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, talking about Will Smith, Chris Rock, Jada Pinkett Smith for Oscars. You know what? One of the things that's on tap, the Academy has said that they are going to fully investigate this, and one of their considerations is rescinding his Oscar. That's right, removing it from him. I see many of you are saying that, well, what about Roman Polanski? What about Woody Allen? No, they're talking about Will Smith. Because what they are alleged to have done happened in their private lives. You know, when you take your private life public, that's just what happens. So everybody, we're talking with just really the brilliant, then the anointed Dr. George C. Fraser. And I want you to get his latest book that he wrote with Les Brown, but he has 6 best-selling books. George C. Fraser, Fraser, Mission Unstoppable, Extraordinary Stories of Failure's Blessings. Wow, wow, wow. You have to come back and just talk about that book. How about that? But let me.
That incident last night, on Sunday night, would have been a perfect story of that book. No question about it. That was a failure, but there will be blessings out of it, I'm sure.
Oh, well, I mean, that's why I keep going back to that out of all the books that you have. I said, wow, this book was written for this moment. And really, we're experiencing moments like these on a global scale. We're experiencing them. We're doing a lot of failing. And there's some blessings in that. There's some blessings in that. In fact, my father often said, that's where your blessings are. You're stronger in your broken places. And that's something that I've heard you say down through the years.
Every problem has a purpose. Make no mistake about that. Our job is to extract from this problem. One of my favorite quotes really is five great movies. And the impediment to action advances the action. What stands in your way becomes the way. Another way to say that is the obstacle is the way. Where there is no obstacle, there is no way. That's the first thing God does when He gives you an assignment. He feels that you're ready for. He puts an obstacle in your way. And your job is to find a way around, through, and under the obstacles to learn the lessons that fail. And when you do, you get an atta girl or an atta boy from God, and then He gives you a new assignment at a slightly higher level. And then what's the next thing God does? He puts an obstacle in your way to learn the lessons of that assignment. And that's how we grow wise, and that's how we understand what not to do. What is the difference between a smart man and a wise man? Very simple. A smart man knows what he wants. A wise man knows what he doesn't.
Amen to that.
understand you are a wise woman. I know this pastor is wise because you learned from your lessons. You from good seed and an incredibly morally grounded and spiritually rooted foundation. But you have suffered, you have fallen, you have made your mistakes. But this is by design. This is how we learn, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what the book is about. A mission unstoppable. Because you're unstoppable. Your Father is unstoppable, right? In spite of the mistakes He made, you made, we all make. I tell people all the time, I have failed my way to success. The difference is I have failed fast. I have failed, and then I've learned, and then I've used those learnings as stepping stones to whatever the next level, whatever next assignment was in my life. And this is what we must all take in. You are not going to get out of this life without failure. This is part of our development. This is part of our growth. This is how God has designed it. Right? It's just that we must learn from these lessons. And I know that Will Smith, this is brilliant, will learn from this blurb that he has at this moment in time.
And I'm praying.
Unfortunately, it was on a global thing.
Well, he's global. And, and I can attest to this from being in my own family, because we've been in the Inquirer, we've been in the Daily Mail, we've been in global news. My father said, you can't have it all. You can't have it all. He said, you can have it all, but not all at one time. And you can't cherry pick life. You have to take it all. You got to take it all. And so when you get these global liftings and blessings, well, you take your hits too, and you try to take them all with equanimity, because the sun is always shining somewhere in this universe. You live long enough, it's going to get right back to you. Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, we're going to get to Chaparral before the segment is over. But Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, I just didn't want to disturb the flow of what we're doing here. Your thoughts?
First, let me say thank you so much for the opportunity to be on with you all this morning. I always consider it a joy, certainly to Dr. Frazier. Thank you. Certainly an honor to be on this platform with you and Mr. Patella. And I'm super excited about your book. I love the juxtaposition of failures and blessings. And I, too, am a huge fan of failing forward. There you go.
There you go. There you go.
Failure is not final. And so that is what I've come to know in life, and certainly about God. I first agree with so much of what Dr. Frazier said about this situation. And I think the first thing is that it's a fruit of a deeper root. What happened on Sunday was not the root. It was the fruit of a root. It was the emotional manifestation of something much deeper that's happening, in my opinion, with Will Smith. I don't know personally, cannot say for sure, but that is what it seemed like to me. And so I'm concerned about his mental health. I agree with Dr. Frazier that we don't know what his emotional and mental state was on that evening. Consider this, he has been nominated for an Academy Award several times, but this, I think, is the first time he was actually considered a front runner. It was his to lose. And so what kind of anxiety comes with that? And certainly not only that, but he is sort of winning this for a whole family. The legacy of the Williams family, the representation of King Richard himself, all of this is on his shoulders. We could not know the pressures that he is experiencing in this moment. The other thing that I want to say is I can also only speak from this personally as a wife. Who is married to a husband whose default is to protect. As a Marine, as a youngest son, he has been taught his whole life to defend and protect. And so I do understand some element of that. While not condoning Will Smith's actions, I understand what it is to be Jada. And I also talk about it from a wife's perspective in that there is no accounting for pillow talk. I'm sure you would agree with Dr. Frazier after 50 years ago, near 24. What I can say is pillow talk is undefeated. I don't care the state of the marriage. I don't care if they're on their way out. there is no accounting and no way that anyone could know what a couple discusses or talks about or experiences in the most intimate moments of their relationship. Those conversations that happen right before they go to sleep, the fleeting passing conversations that happen over coffee, the ones that are unplanned, that happen as they are just the only two people in the car. There is no accounting for what couples discuss and the emotions that pass between them. And so when he looks at her, we don't know the well of emotion and feeling that while he may have laughed at the joke in that moment, clearly something transitioned for him. And perhaps it was what he has witnessed her go through in this alopecia journey. What maybe the crime he has seen, maybe the depression that perhaps she has gone through. If there's one thing we know for sure, Black women don't play about their hair. I wish I could say that for but that's really what it is. We don't play about our hair. And we have always been taught from an early age not to play about our hair. As a matter of fact, getting our hair pressed, and I know I have witnesses, getting our hair pressed the night before the Sunday was not only a ritual, it was a rite of passage. That first time you got to get a press, you thought you were somebody. As a little Black girl, it was a rite of passage. The first time you were able to get braids, the first time you were able to do your hair on your own, it was a rite of passage. And so this has always been part of the Black woman's culture. And so now to be a woman, not only a Black woman, a Black woman in Hollywood who now has struggled with hair issues in a society and in a community where your looks mean everything. Your looks mean everything to your career. Your looks mean everything for your pocket. What must she have been going through, and in the most intimate moments in their marriage, what has she shared with him and what has he seen? Again, not condoning what he did, but kind of understanding why he may have done it. And I'm saying that as a wife, but there's so many variables, so many things we do not know. And I think this is also a larger issue of how we put celebrities on a pedestal, how we hashtag goals. And this is what we want for our lives. And we really don't know what's happening behind closed doors. While I am not famous, I am a public figure as a pastor. And I often find that people are concerned with what happens in the pulpit when sometimes they need to be concerned about what's happening in the parsonage.
Well, you know what's interesting to me, that they made, Regina Hall made a joke about their open marriage. She was looking for single men in the audience and invited him onto the stage, and she said Jada won't mind. I thought that was odd that did not upset her and him. Because people have made, because part of the culture for Black women, before I get to you, Robert, is our hair, but it's also part of our pathology. And one of the things that I've always given Jada Pinkett Smith credit for is that she never had a lot of hair. She did something that, when my sister and I turned 6 or 7 or 8, my mother cut off all of our hair. Dr. Fraser, Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, Attorney Patillo. She said, you know why I did that? I said, well, hey, I wanted an afro, so that was fine with me, but she said, no, I cut off those pigtails because I wanted to disabuse you of the notion that you needed hair to be beautiful. So my sister and I are 12 years apart, but she took that hair off. And I think back as I watch Bill Cosby and his wife, Dr. Bill Cosby and Dr. Camille Cosby, on covers of magazines down through the years, their children always had afros. They've always been very, very, very culturally sensitive. All jokes aside, people like Dr. Fraser, they can't really get an afro. We love you. And my father can't now, as he has gotten older, but we get it. But you all have tried, bless your heart. But
I tried. It didn't work out too well.
No, it did. It did not work out well, but that's all right. We admire you for trying. but so the fact that she reacted to that, the reaction was to her hair and not to the sanctity of marriage, at least how we interpret it. I'm not going to rain any judgment down on someone about whether you sleep with someone or not. That's between you and your husband or wife or partner. I'm not in that. But that was funny to them. But her hair was a fighting matter.
I thought what Regina said was far more offensive
To me.
than what Chris Rock said. Chris Rock said, I mean, his joke was really simple. He said, Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane, 2, can't wait to see it. That was his joke. Now, I didn't get the joke. It wasn't funny. It's actually a bad joke because it just wasn't funny. You had to triangulate. You had to know a whole lot of stuff in order to find funny in that joke. But what Regina said was just, I thought that was very offensive, but she didn't find it offensive. She actually laughed. So I think the hair thing that we're talking about is very, very an important insight.
And we need to deal with it.
I think the couple was expected because it was a huge public incident a year ago or so. I think they expected he brought to the carpet on that. I think they prepared them like, what everybody's going to talk about what happened last year. We already know that. I don't think that the hair joke was expected. I think perhaps they had already braced themselves for the open relationship discussion, but not her struggles with her appearance.
But, I don't know, I just didn't, for me, I think, and I have a very, very dear, dear, dear friend who has alopecia, and I've seen her struggle with it. And she's like a sister to me. So, I've seen that, and I've shopped with her for wigs, almost 40 years ago when we were teenagers, right? Just coming out of our teen years. But right now, I mean, that for me, because last year that was a big deal about her being with one of her son's friends who was half her age. That and when she brought her husband to the red to the red table, was it? It was he looked to be deeply embarrassed, and it's not like it's something. And he was tearful. It just Dr. Fraser. I mean, because that's something Black men just don't do. Black men don't get over that. And I'm not stereotyping. I'm just telling the truth. White men tend to get over that better than Black men. Black men don't get over that.
They don't. And she publicly said that my man, Will, does not satisfy me sexually. I mean, who says that on a global forum? Why would you even bring that up? That is the lack of protection of your man and his ego, right? And what makes him, many feel that makes him a man. Why would you even see that? So I did not think she showed him the respect that he deserved. And all of that they talked about, I actually just want to be candid. I was not interested in hearing that. That's your business. Keep it to yourself. Keep it private. Right? This is not a discussion for the public forum. Why? What's the point? And that made me dislike her for a moment because I just did not think that was respectable. But that's just me. I'm just old-fashioned that way.
As well, I recently learned that in his book, in the very opening of his book, that I think came out a few months ago, that he talks about a very specific incident where he could not protect his mother. And I'm not saying that this is in direct correlation to that, but I am saying I go back to my point of this being the fruit of a deeper root.
Absolutely.
And that could it be that after all the time, these compounding embarrassments perhaps finally came to a head on that night. Come with all of the high emotion of the evening, and Chris Rock caught the brunt of it. I also want to add this. I wonder, in this court of public opinion, would we be so offended had this happened at the NAACP Awards or the BET Awards? Because I remember a time with certain award shows, these kind of things were anticipated and looked forward to, almost big bet placing as to who's going to get in a fight at this one. And so I struggle a little bit with the pedestal that we have put this platform, this Academy Awards platform on, that we now say he's embarrassed us in front of everyone. It would have been an embarrassment whether he did it on the Academy Awards or in a street parking lot. And so I think we also have to wrestle with the idea of how we have framed the Academy Awards, even in our perception, to be the pinnacle of Black success. That's an issue.
Well, see, for me, the issue is, you know, the hip hop community would do that. And they were not the hip hop community that was born of the Black experience. It was the hip hop community that was born of white record companies. That's when you saw all of this fighting and violence. When you had Sylvia Robinson, who owned Sugar Hill Records, when you had Black-owned record companies, you didn't see all this madness and foolishness. It's when we became the embodiment of white fantasy and foolishness that you heard the N-word, that you heard women call the B-word, all of this stuff. You know what? I mean, I've got 2 minutes for you, Attorney Robert Patillo. Everyone, I want you to stay with me on Facebook. We're going to talk for a few minutes, begging the pardon of Dr. George C. Fraser and Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, and of course, Yusha Pearl Wells, because I want to give you all a chance to kind of stretch out a bit. If you can give me about 10, 15 minutes on the other side of the break. Stay right here, everybody. But Robert Patillo, what say you after all that you've heard here?
Well, this goes the hard part about being the lawyer on with pastors. Because the advice I would give is there is nothing honorable or rewarding about staying in a bad marriage. Leave. If you find yourself getting to the point where you feel so demoralized and so debased and that your mental health is at risk and you're out here fighting people at work and in the streets over the person you love, you should leave. And I think that is the most important lesson to take away. You can see from, as was just stated, from Will Smith's actions, that Gil Scott-Heron had a song called Pieces of a Man. Those were the pieces of a man on the stage. That was not a whole human being. That is somebody who's been so demoralized and so debased that they had to act out in this way. Chris Rock is a comedian. He's at a comedy show. He's telling jokes. Was it a bad joke? Yes. Was it off color? Sure. He talked to him backstage. That slap wasn't for Chris Rock. That slap was for Jada that he couldn't give her. That slap was because of August Alsina. That slap was because he can't satisfy her. That slap was because she's still in love with Tupac. That slap was because his face became a meme, crying his eyes out because she wanted to have a marital conversation on her Facebook show instead of person-to-person with her husband. So when you find yourself in that situation, walk away. Because for the rest of us who are not Will Smith, if you're out here slapping people in the streets because they made fun of your wife, well, one, she's made you a public laughing stock. So, of course, people are going to make fun of you. And so if you get out there and do the same thing Will Smith did, only one of three things are going to happen. A, the person hits you back, and now you're in a fight. B, the person shoots you, and now you're dead. C, the person calls the police, and now you're in jail, and now she's with August Alsina while you're in jail. So before all those things happen, go down to the courthouse, pay the filing fee, and y'all figure out how y'all going to divvy up things and work things out. But please leave before you get to this situation.
Dr. Fraser, I've got about a minute and a half before we leave Radioland, but everybody's going to stay here on the Santita Jackson and Friends page for a few more minutes. What are your final words? Mission unstoppable, everybody. Extraordinary stories of failures, blessings. Boy, we could use that book right now.
You ain't lying. I sort of look at this, and I call it the Indianapolis 500 effect. Do you know why 100,000 people go to the Indianapolis 500 and watch cars go around in circles? They go for one reason: to look for the crash. They're looking for the crash. That's what the excitement is, right? So I think people are looking, in many cases, in their case, in the Arroyo said, oh my God, I love what he said. I agree with what he said. No question about it. So it was the Indianapolis 500 effect right there. People are looking for the crash. And Sunday night was the crash. It really was. I mean, the triangulation of the slap being really for Jada versus Chris Rock, he just happened to be standing there, was a profound insight. But it really was. I agree with him on a deep level. It's one of the reasons that the Power Networking Conference takes place on August 3rd through the 6th in Houston, Texas. We cover wellness. We cover business, money, and wellness, psychological wellness and physical wellness, because we are out of our natural minds and we need healing. And we cover that. And so this has been a very, very insightful conversation. And I am so appreciative that I'm a part of it. And I'm here to hear these incredible points of view.
Oh, well, Dr. George C. Fraser, everybody. Stay with me on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. And Chaparral, I got 10 seconds for you. 708-526-4546. Celebrations by us. You go, Chaparral.
Yes, Santita, we are now taking your orders for all of your things that you could need for the holiday season. So please don't hesitate to give us a call, 708-526-4546. Thanks so much, Santita.
Stay right there, Chaparral, because I know you want to weigh in. She really, really, really wanted to hear from you, Dr. Fraser, today. Stay right here, everybody, on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow. Okay, Chaparral, you got it. There's Dr. Fraser. Oh, my gosh. She said this is her dream team. She wanted to hear from you, Dr. Fraser. She wanted to hear from you, Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, and she wanted to hear from you, Robert Patillo. So first you need to hear from Chaparral, who is, she's got a brilliant story. She was just on Nightline not too long ago, Dr. Fraser, and she has had a podcast that's been heard by about 2 million people. She lost her son. We've been trying to figure out who did it and why the Chicago police moved so slowly on all of this. But she's really been a faithful listener, faithful, really member of the Santita Jackson Morning Stars family. And she wanted to share something with you. And she's been married a long time. Chaparral, you got Dr. Fraser and Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams. So go on, and Dr. Fraser.
Yes, I'm here, Santita. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Go on.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say is that for me as a wife, it was very, very disheartening to see that a lot of people were conflating, his actions with that of being a man. And I told Santita that one of the greatest gifts that my husband gave me was wisdom. And I saw my husband, who is, 6'4", 350 pounds, confront a situation that was so hostile, and it was just crazy. And he sat there in silence and didn't say anything. So it took me, because I was ready. I was about to be down as they say, up in these streets. But when I saw him in his reaction, I had to look at the situation a little bit different. But once we got home, I said, oh my God, I can't believe that you sat there and you didn't say a word. He said, it was God. He said, maybe before our son passed and I would handle things differently. But when you get on the other side and you know how things can escalate, and lives can change in a second. You learn to pause. And that's why when you look at me, you calm down as well. And so I told Santita, I said, I never had so much love or respect for him as when I saw him be calm when he could have exploded. So as a wife, sometimes we have to put together that balance so that way both of us can't be all killed. We can't be like that. And that's what I was looking for Jada to do, to help her husband calm down. Because that's what we're helpmates for each other. That's what God gave us each other for. And so in that moment, I learned a lot from my husband, and it was so much strength that I had never, I won't say never seen him have, but that in that moment, it was something that only God can give you is that grace.
Can I speak to that very quickly?
Oh, please.
Yes. We know that there are times when silence is golden. We know that. We listen. And there's an energy, there's an interpretation that we're taking in. So speaking to what our husband so profound, this is incredible wisdom that he demonstrated. He listened, and then he understood very deeply. Never let people who aren't going anywhere take you with them. Never let people who aren't going anywhere take you with them. Listen, it wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't penetrating the emotions that people are looking for at times when they say or you hear certain toxic things. He understood that in his infinite wisdom, and he just made up in his mind, I'm not going there. I'm not going. They ain't going anywhere with this, and they ain't going to take me with them. So I applaud him. You have an incredible husband, Sunday. I would love to meet him because that was brilliant. And that's how I would have handled it. In most cases, that's how I do handle things. I listen. And only when I have something I think that can assuage or help the situation will I say something. But to join in and to put fuel on the fire, only on very, very, very few situations in my life have I cracked? Yes.
Of course.
Have I gone off the rail in 77 years of life? Yes, I have. No question about it. We all have. No one hasn't. But ultimately, you reel yourself in, you think about it, you bless it and release it, and you move on. So that was a wonderful story about your husband, and I applaud him. And he did exactly the right thing.
Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, what role does a wife have in all of this?
I think I can always speak for myself, and I do agree that in this situation, perhaps the greater course of action would have been to say stop. There is a power in a wife's voice, and sometimes things have gone too far, and maybe they don't hear it. But I do think an effort to say stop would have worked in that moment. Just stop, think, just wait, hold on. And it could be that she was not expecting him to make that move and defend her in that manner. I would wager, and again, I don't know if I'm not casting aspersions or judgment, but I would wager to see that coming either. That, we have not seen that behavior from him on her behalf in this way. We've seen that behavior before, though. He has, had these issues with reporters and things like that. But I dare say it caught her off guard just as it did everyone else. But as a wife in a situation like that, what I can say for myself is my first course of action would be calm down. Just calm down. Because in those situations, we do have a certain power to calm and appease in a way that no one else can. And so in that moment as a wife, that could have been the best course of action. Yeah, I agree with that.
Because I'm just wondering. Oh, no, please, Dr. Fraser and Dr. Patillo. Yes. I'm Attorney Patillo. Dr. Fraser.
The puffing and the rolling of her eyes, the discomfort that she demonstrated. Of course, a husband and wife that have been together that long communicated a whole other level.
Yes,
now, you don't necessarily have to have words, right? It could have been a signal. You really need to go up there and get his behind, right? Saying that. I mean, it's just the way she comported herself could have been, and again, this is all speculation, could have been the trigger. Could have been, because as you said earlier at the top of the show, he was laughing at first.
And I think it was a trigger.
Suddenly,
Dr.
right?
Fraser,
When you looked at her,
because
the
she is
whole thing
continuing.
changed.
Well, you know what, Dr. Fraser, stay here with that for a minute, because she is continually challenged his manhood. She's compared him as a man to Tupac. You know, what would Tupac do? And you know, these bad boys who at least, you know, ostensibly are from the streets. She has constantly lifted that, elevated that as like the gold standard. And that is not who he is. I mean, but I think that Will Smith is a man. He's just not he's not that guy. And I just got the feeling that he was responding more to that and to the challenges to his manhood, because he took a lot of hits when it was revealed that she had this entanglement, as she put it. And mind you, everybody, I'm not raining judgment down on her in this, because I don't know their marriage. I don't know the deal that people cut to make it through this life. I don't know. But I just got the sense that, as the pastor said, that this is the fruit of a deeper root. Something else is going on here. And with her rolling her eyes, which, you know, I'm like, whoa, you don't need to do that in your beautiful gown. No. And the
that says, "Don't let anyone come for me tonight." We just don't know. We really don't know. And I know sometimes I think also we gloss over the fact that while these celebrities are now polished to some degree and are in Hollywood and living this Hollywood life, they are still from the communities they come from.
Yeah.
And that doesn't go. Will Smith is still from Philadelphia. Jada Pinkett is still from Baltimore. Chris Rock is still from Brooklyn. And so I think sometimes in the glossing, in the beautifying of these people, we forget, again, there's a root. Mm-hmm. And I think oftentimes we forget that we know how to access that. While we may not always use it, we know how to get it.
But
I live in Bridgehampton now, but I'm from Bushwick, Brooklyn.
But you know, but
that doesn't mean that I remember my community and my roots.
Yeah, but Diana Ross is from the projects, and you wouldn't know that, right? I mean, and so the thing is, and my mother is from Fort Pierce, Florida, which was basically unincorporated United States of America. If you read Zora Neale Hurston's book and you see the grinding poverty that she writes about, that's my mother's community. Zora Neale Hurston taught in a school that my grandmother attended. So where you're from is not where you're going necessarily. I think we've got to, you know,
I agree.
There's a root there. There's a root there. I'm from Bed-Stuy. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
No wonder
I'm from Bed-Stuy. Right. I'm from Bed-Stuy. Bed-Stuy, New York, are either a thug or a gangster. I'm a gangster, and I tell people that. I said, now don't let this light skin and good hair. Right? My root is thug life. Okay, make no mistake about that, right? And I told up earlier. Yes, I have cracked. No question about that. About 77 years, and the gangster came out. The words came out. The passion came out. Right? It was there from the beginning. Right? Now I suppress it as much as I can, but under the right set of circumstances, the root, right, and the fruit of that root will reveal itself.
I think now I know I'm so immediately fond of you. What's your neighbor?
You're right. Between Reed and Stuyvesant. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh wow! You said Reed. Now I know you're really from that side. You didn't say Malcolm X.
No, Reed. That's Malcolm X down. Right. That's right.
Thank you, Santita, for this connection. Thank you.
You all are hot messes. Brooklyn's in the house. New York's in the house. I love it. Bed-Stuy. Oh, wait, is Carrie still there? Carrie? Oh, I don't know. What? You know what? Robert Patillo, are you still there? Well, let me tell you.
I'm still here, yeah.
What are your thoughts? I mean, I'm not going to keep you all day, although I really could because this conversation is so stirring to me, and I'm so glad we're having this one. What I mean, what do you make of all of this? Because now you know what the Academy is having an official investigation, everybody. And the part of the discussion that's on the table is whether to rescind his Oscar or not. You know, and some people are saying, oh, Woody Allen's kept his and Roman Polanski's kept his. I get it. But they're not even that they're not handling this way. They're looking at him. You know, he could be without his Oscar. We hope that doesn't happen, but don't act like that's not part of the discussion.
Right. Well, let's understand that if it wasn't for wealth and power and celebrity, losing an Oscar will be the least of his concern. He will be worried about felony charges for aggravated assault for anybody else. He will be looking at, a civil suit for, let's say, injured him or not the truth out of his mouth, something along those lines. We have to stop equivocating hurt feelings with criminal action. So, yeah, Jada's feelings may have been hurt by the ball joke. You're at a comedy show. He's a comedian. You're sitting in the front row. And we start assaulting every comedian that makes a joke that people like. Dave Chappelle recently has been making all kinds of jokes about transgenders. What happens the first time one of them rushes the stage and slaps him? Or is that now going to be the par for the course? D.L. Hughley has made a whole career out of being an insult comic. What's to stop somebody from running up on stage and slapping him in the name of protecting their wife? We have to stop equivocating and making it seem like it fits in one half and half doesn't in the other. Chris Rock was doing his job. Will Smith is a broken man who took his marital issues out on somebody else. There's an old saying in the country, and I'm down from Waverly Hall, Georgia, where it said, don't wash your dirty laundry in public if you don't want people talking about your drawers. So these folks have washed all their laundry in public over the last 30 years, and now they're mad that people are talking about their drawers that they put out there on display for everybody to see. And for the women that I keep seeing on social media saying, well, I want a man to protect me like that, that is a toxic mentality. You have to cleanse yourself of that. That is not a man protecting you. That is a broken man handling a situation immaturely like a child. Because if that's what your expectation is of a man protecting you, we have jails and cemeteries around this country full of young black men who decided they wanted to, quote unquote, protect their girl or protect her reputation and got into a fist fight or a shootout because somebody assaulted her, talked about her hair or her shoes or something along those lines. The manly action, the protecting action, is to understand your role in the family and to not be overwhelmed by emotions and get into a physical altercation that can escalate. What would have happened if Chris Rock wasn't such a mature gentleman and him and his crew and his posse decided to shoot up Will Smith when they left because of the public embarrassment being slapped on stage? So we have to think these things out further and reevaluate what we mean when we say protect and provide. It doesn't mean I need to be out here beating up people because as with many of them, I was a wild one back in my 20s. Like, I'll fight anybody at the drop of a hat just cuz. And when I met my wife, there was a situation where I was about to go fight somebody, and she literally physically jumped on my back and pulled me down to the ground to make sure that I'm not in danger our future. That is the union. That is the role that each party plays in there. And so we have to stop saying that Will Smith was quote unquote protecting her. What Will Smith was doing was having an emotional outburst, having a tantrum because of the trauma he's been through in his broken marriage. And don't come slapping me because your wife is out here cheating on you. That is not my problem. I'm at work, and we have to have an honest conversation about it, and not run it through our own filter in our minds of what we think America's supposed to look like.
And I think women, black women in particular, our sisters, Pastor Tisha, Dixon, Williams, and I'm, Dr. Fraser, Attorney Patillo. I will say this as a woman, as a black woman. I've grown up all my life with black men who protected me, starting with my daddy, then my brothers. A friend of mine, I came home from college, one Christmas, and one of my buddies came by. My brothers who were still, one was in high school. No, all three, two of them were in high school and one was in grammar school. They came out of their bedrooms to come and sit with this guy because they wanted to know who he was and how he knew their sister. My Uncle Saint. I mean, I've just had black men to protect me. So I'm not broken, at least not in that way, right? We can't need our men to protect us in that way. Because see, that's not our need, that's our neediness. And that always gets you in trouble. Because we have a need as black women to protect our black men because they're so vulnerable. So few of them get through. Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams. And I've seen my mother stand, and I know Dr. Frazier's wife has stood in the gap protecting her black man. You have to do it because if you move out the way, then they're killable. They're lynchable. Part of what's driving, I will tell you, I would assert, when we look at all this rash of black men being killed from coast to coast, we have made our men killable because we do not respect them publicly the way that we should. If we had a line in the sand and if we said you cannot attack our black men, the response to our men would be very different. And we have to recover that and deal with them on their bad behaviors and things and the places where they need healing. Deal with that at home. But we have taken our pain into the public square. And that has hurt our men, and therefore it has hurt our families. I have so much admiration for a young woman I saw on Instagram who said she said, I'm not going to ask my ex for child support anymore. What I'm going to help him do is get a job so we can co-parent together. Because making him broke is not helping our child, me, or anybody. See, we have to grow up in our politics too and grow beyond our personal pain and whatever your daddy did or did not do for you. You need to work that through and be honest about it because we're not being honest about it. A lot of us were not born of love relationships. Let's keep it 100. And then the mothers tell the children all kinds of horrible things about these daddies. Stop it. Because then he turned and married somebody else because men know how to do that. And you just need to make sure, as my mother and father told me when I was on my way to Howard University, they said, you make sure individually, they told me in their own ways, don't lie down in bed at night with a man who ain't gonna get up out of that same bed and marry you in the morning. That was my father's talk to me. That was it. I said, oh, okay. Do you know that was 40 years ago? I never forgot that. Do not lie down in bed at night with a man who will not get up out of that same bed and marry you in the morning. Don't do it. My mother's message was the same. My sisters, you will save yourself a whole lot of trouble if you follow the biblical path, which is to let the man find you. And then your job is to be the missing rib. You don't have a missing rib. He does. You stand upright. You keep looking for him to fulfill a neediness in you. No, you have to fulfill a need in him because he's got something missing, not you. We're the last creation God made. The last. God trusted us so much, he made us the bearers of life. What are we doing? This man's career has been hurt, if not damaged, because of rolled eyes.
My God.
Right.
My God. This has been a mic drop show. I mean, this is incredible.
Well, you started it. You started it. After I read what you wrote yesterday, I called Pastor Williams. I think before I called you, I might have called before I called you. I said, girl, you got to see this and you got to be on this because I got to find this man today.
And our sisters, you have to protect your investment.
Yeah.
Time, talent, and treasure. That's what your investment is in this male human being that you've decided to love and marry. Now, that's part A. Part B is the protection of that investment, right? The ongoing protection. Now, it goes both ways, but it is without question in the best interest of us is to protect this investment. No question Sunday. And this has been a very, very, I think, interesting and revealing conversation. Our lawyer friend, wow, mic drop, my brother. I mean, that was just straight, no chasing. And the truth will set you free, but it will make you miserable first.
I agree with what you said. You said we have to protect our investment. And I also believe that while we get protecting that investment, we should also expect a return on the investment.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Amen. It has to be reciprocal. And while we are yet protecting you, there's a level of expectation of protection. Because I think what happened is in the desire to protect our men, we also somehow forgot to hold them accountable as well.
Absolutely.
And there's protection and the coddling. And so I think it works, as you indicated, it works both ways. I'm going to protect what's mine. Why to protect me?
That's right.
And
in every sphere and in every space.
And when he feels like enough of a man, that's his natural inclination. See, because my expectation is that a man's going to protect, and so I'm right here with you. And because reciprocity, when people are well loved and when people are whole, that's what they do. It's life,
And defining what protection is. Protection is not only a slap or masculinity. Protection is financial. Protection is legacy. Protection is a plan for our family. Protection is education. Protection comes in many forms. And it's not just solely relegated to the marriage relationship, but I'm looking for my brothers in ministry to protect me too. Yeah. I'm like you, Santita. I don't have the story, thank God, that I have not been protected by men. I've been protected by men my whole life. And it is gone even into the ministry space. As you know, I've had some of the best men and brothers protecting me in this sphere. Appreciate them, but here's why, and here's what they know: that I will defend and protect them with everything that I have.
Absolutely.
And so again, it's reciprocal. That while I am making this investment, I'm certainly expecting a return on it.
Well, but that is at the top of the paradigm of human need. Not independence, but interdependence. See, when we're healthy and whole, we can depend upon each other. We can feed each other. And so I'm with you. I mean, I expect men to protect me, and I know when a man won't do that, he's not whole, and I just keep on moving. Because that's all I know.
We started with
that's a whole other show.
Yes, it is.
At FraserNet, we started our own virtual nation, and we wrote what we call, to your point, the Declaration of Interdependence. We didn't write a declaration of independence, of interdependence. And this is one of the fundamental structural differences between white folk and black folk because of their worldview and Eurocentric worldview and yours. Right? We believe that the universe is about connectedness.
Yes.
They believe the universe is about survival of the fittest. So interdependence, powerful and key word when we combine in terms of how we comport ourselves, how we gather our strength, how we demonstrate our strength. And this is, one of the fundamental things that we must evolve ultimately into to gain our real freedom. And that is unity, interdependence, unity, which engenders trust, right? Organizing, right? There's only one institution in our culture that is fully funded and supported by us, and that is the Black Church, right? Most of our other organizations have, including mine, corporate sponsors, and the majority of that money comes from others, and therefore the golden rule applies, and that is those with the golden rule, right? So we need organizations that are fully funded and are on specific purposes that we are in control of without question. Now, the third and final thing I'm
going to say, and I want to say it and still be loved, but it's the truth, and that is we must stop worship of white God. Now, we're working on that, okay? But when you get on your knees for generations praying to a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus,
Oh, boy.
right, which is considered your God, right, who do you end up worshiping and loving more than you worship and love yourself? Right? That person that you've gotten on your knees to. I've been in orphanages and foster care for 18 years of my life. Right? My mother was mentally ill, and at 2, I was put into an orphanage with my siblings, and then we were put into foster care, and I aged out of foster care. But my parents, my foster parents, were Roman Catholic. So from 5 years old, they went to Mass every Sunday. They would take us to Mass. And back I was born in 1945, so this is in the 50s, right, early 50s. What was in the Catholic Church? A crucifix with the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus on it. And we got on our knees, and we prayed to this man until I aged out of foster care, right, for 15 years. I must admit, I absolutely thought in my younger years before I matured and got saved, so to speak, that the white man's ice was colder, that the white man's sugar was sweeter. This was my God. This is who I prayed to. I cannot even begin to tell you how jacked up my mental condition was in the earlier passages of my life. And this is so true for so many of us. Now the Black church is moving away from that. We have a Black Bible, the African American Bible, where every image is black. We have removed the crucifix from our church and the white Jesus, blonde hair, blue eye. This is a construct that was given to us by our slave masters who instilled in us their religion. Right? It's all in the Willie Lynch letter, if you read that letter. So those are the 3 things: unity, organization, and God must look like us. There are no people on earth praying to a God other than us that doesn't look like us. Right? This has a deep psychological impact on who we believe is our Savior. Right? And there is no white Savior. Right? White people ain't coming to save black people. Right? The white people ain't even thinking about black people. You know what white people are thinking about? They're thinking about white people. They're thinking about their husbands, their wives, their children, their neighborhoods, their schools, their businesses, and your pockets. Now, this is not about hating white people. Right? You don't have to hate white people to love yourself. But to love yourself, you must worship something. If you worship, it looks, it feels, and is culturally going to who you are. And this, I don't know what this has to do with Jada and Will, but it was, I just wanted to get that out because that's how I see it. And I'd love to hear any comment on that.
Pastor? I don't know if you still think, do you want to comment on that? Because I don't know how they came up with a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus out of Egypt, but okay.
Right. I agree. But I will say, Dr. Fraser, is I agree. Image matters. It matters. You know, what we ascribe to, it matters. It matters in our self-image. And if there was a way for me to link this back to Will and Jada, I go back to my initial statement. Had this happened on a black platform, would we be as outraged? We have a tightness to success.
Yeah.
And so many times, why would they do on the most important platform in acting? It doesn't have to be. We could create not even the equivalent to an Academy Award, our own Academy Award that says this is the pinnacle of our success. Mm-hmm. And so I equate what you said to that. Would we be as outraged, or would we? Or the sadder point of view is, would we just be like figures?
You
we
know,
just expect it. And that's the bad part.
I have to tell you, but I'm in a unique position because we put on Black events. The whole Expo movement was started by Reverend Jackson. He started that when he was a student at the University of Chicago. People thought he was crazy when he said, we're going to go to the amphitheater. But, inside of 2 years, we'd gone from, the hospitality room in his dormitory at the University of Chicago when he was in seminary to the amphitheater. And within 4 or 5 years of its inception, it had become the biggest event in Black America, right? 1 million people would come through the amphitheater for a week. And all of the top Black acts in the world and Tony Bennett and, and others would come in. It got so big that American Bandstand came and covered it, because it was just a seminal event. Then Midnight Special they covered it because it was so big. But, at oftentimes we do not respect our own events. But I'm telling you, it's when we have decided to become caricatures projected by others that we have fallen for this foolishness. Because when Berry Gordy and his family were in charge, when Al Bell was in charge of Stax, when Clarence Avant had Buddha, you better not act a fool because your mama is watching. Your dad, your cousins are watching, your daddy. Wait. When we were accountable to our community. But see, I remember when rap took a turn and became what they call hip hop. And I love hip hop. But I know that it was manufactured and not born. Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. The Sugar Hill Gang, they wouldn't dare. Even, who is it? Curtis Mayfield wouldn't say the N-word. Wouldn't say that. No, we the people who are darker than blue, he wouldn't do that. And had a song that talked about, wait a minute, you don't use that word. Hold on. Now we have to be accountable to each other and to ourselves for selling the world to gain our soul. Selling our souls to gain the world. We've made a lot of money. And we've had the Black faces in the highest places, but how have we really advanced? That's on us. Because we've fallen into a trap. Jesus said, I have overcome the world. That was the ultimate triumph. And forgiving us, because he knew how foolish we were. Hey, there's some things that we have got to clean up. And making men and women accountable, and so they can become the creatures that God made us to be. Yeah, we've got to do that. Men have to be accountable and women have to be accountable. You can't be a queen just because you put a crown on top of your head. Now, you just need to stop that right now. You are not a queen. You're not even a princess in training. Now, you need to be trained into that. You ain't no king either. And you're not a prince. Why don't you just try to be a whole human being first? Just do that. Robert, we've been looking for you.
I think also one of the things I think we have to also realize is the normalization of violence between Black men. That people simply accept it. Mm-hmm. Will Smith would have never got up there if Amy Schumer made that same joke. You think Will Smith would have got up there and slapped the hell out of her on stage?
No, and she's unapologetic.
Made that same joke.
Well, you stole that question right out of my brain. I was going to ask you, would he had smacked Jerry Seinfeld?
Mm-hmm. They would have, and then not just that, the reactions of people with two Black men during the altercation. Because if he had got there and slapped Jerry Seinfeld off the stage like that, security would have tackled him and drug him out of there in shackles. But because it's Black on Black, we have a dehumanization of Black men. There's almost an expectation.
That's right.
Them acting like how they act. And we have to break that cultural stereotype, because as long as we allow that to continue, we are literally making ourselves second-class citizens. We are literally dehumanizing ourselves to the point that we are gladiators in the arena, still fighting for their entertainment. Because white people are just laughing their way to the bank on this one. The Oscars, they never had this much buzz about them, because two Black men decide to get into an altercation, or one can't control his emotions, and so it entertains the whole country. You watch Paul Bear or Seth Meyers or James Corden or any Jimmy Kimmel or any Jimmy Fallon. They all had nothing but jokes and ratings out of them. So
And
we
Morning
have to
Joe.
understand that America has normalized violence in that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, and you know,
That's
but the
right.
thing is, I want to be careful because I think that, as Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams said, this is the fruit of a deeper root. And so I want people to reach out to all of them. Number one, I give Chris Rock all the credit in the world for reacting in the way that he did. Because even at the commercial break, he walked to the edge of the stage. I saw this in a report in the Daily Mail. And he leaned toward Will Smith, who would not look at him. And he was trying to apologize. He was trying to apologize. And so there's something else going while his wife was holding his hand. There's a lot going on here. And I guess at the end of the day, I want some healing, you know, because I know he's struggling. And the more you hear about Will Smith's life, the more you hear everybody's had some struggles. Nobody gets through this thing alive. That's just how it works. That having been said, there was something else. It was not as simple as my wife has alopecia. No, because his manhood has been dragged through the mud over the past year or so. And he's having to constantly explain himself. And I know that was part of it, but a large part of it. I wish his wife had expressed herself differently. Then, you know, if you need to go after Chris Rock, you do it off stage so this is a private thing and it becomes a rumor and maybe an urban legend. But you don't do it this way. You don't do it this way. And I think that, and he's been so controlled because I know that in order to get to where he is, he has had to take so many hits and so many insults. And he's had to make so many compromises. We all do. That having been said, there was something else. This was something more elemental, more fundamental, because his wife has insulted him publicly and has assaulted his manhood. And that has made me sad for her because she comes from her own brokenness. But I want them all to be well. And I hope that if they get even a piece of this conversation today, that they will hear Dr. Fraser and Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams and you, Attorney Robert Patillo. Because I know that there's a path forward. I know Mission Unstoppable is real. I know this failure can be can be his great blessing. I know it can. I know it can. I know it can. I know it. I know he can become bigger than this. He can become so much bigger. A friend of mine, a very dear, wise gentleman who's older than my parents, came to me in a very, very painful public moment in our lives. And he said, you know, how are you doing? And I said, oh, it's been a tough moment. He said, you know what, let me tell you something. After all of this is over, you are going to see that this was your father's greatest moment. I said, because I'd said this to my family at the time. He said, you know, he could have done a lot of things. He could have destroyed some people. He could have hurt some people just to save himself and his bigness, but he did not do it. He took his hit as a man. And he's trying to make amends to you, his wife, all of his children. That's what a man really does. And that's the measure of his character. And I appreciated that in that moment. I needed to hear that from someone outside of my family, you know? And we all need to hear that. And so I hope that as I look at Will Smith's body of work, as we all do, he has tried to lift us up in the way that Bill Cosby has done, in the way that Denzel has done. He's really worked very hard to do that, and I want him to continue. And I want him to continue to I want him to be with Dr. George Fraser and be mentored. I really do. I want him to have some grown men in his circle who can help him to grow and heal. Because grown men help men to be grown. He doesn't need a mama right now. I was telling a friend of mine that about her son. I said, baby, your son needs his daddy. You've done all you can for him. That's what he needs. My brother Jonathan made the observation. We were at an NBA game. This is about 20 years ago. He said, you can tell, he just whispered in my ear. He said, you know what? You can tell these young men don't have daddies. I said, wow, how can you tell that? He said, look at how they react to conflict. He said, because he said, now dad, he started going through all the things that dad told our father would tell them as they played sport and as they would have conflicts on the basketball court and all this other stuff. You know, he said, your father pulls you back. He said, the fists are the last things that you use. You don't do that. He said, manhood is restraint, Santita. Your mama can't teach you that. A man has to teach you that. And if it's not your daddy, it's a mentor who's a man. And so my sisters, I want y'all to understand that get these boys to some men who can help them. That's what they need. Oh, you all, I want you all to have the final words because I'm full. I'm so full. Oh, I'm so full.
Let me start first.
Please.
This was an important conversation. This is a conversation I really believe that our nation needs to hear. I say our nation, I mean our Black nation needs to hear. I'm going to make a special request. I don't know if you can do this anyway, but if you could send me a recording of this conversation. I have about 700,000 people that follow me on all of my social media platforms. I will feature this conversation because it was rich, it was insightful. It had male energy, female energy, and it's everything. I think much was said that we need to hear. And so if you would, I humbly request that you send that to me so that I can get it out to our world. Yeah, it's a wonderful conversation. I'm honored to be a part of it. And I learned so much from it. And I appreciate all of our co-guests, the lawyer and then our pastor. Just wonderful. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, because you have inspired me down through the years, and you inspired this conversation because your words were healing words. And they were instructive, and they were mature words from a grown man who is a husband, father, and father to so many. Because you've chosen to take the Black nation and really the world into your heart and onto your shoulders. And I thank God for you. I thank you. And so I thank you for being the inspiration for this, because this was not something I was going to touch. But when I saw your words, I said, okay, this is my portal. And God let me, because I'd see what you got to say every day. And that was it for me. That was it. And then I reached out to Pastor. Oh, no, thank you. I had to reach out to Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams because I have so much respect for her and her insights. And I thank God for all that God is. I thank you for being available to God, Tisha, so that God can use you as God is using you in the most magnificent of ways. And I feel the same way about Robert Patillo, just brilliant civil rights lawyer, brilliant radio host. And I want to take this conversation forward and further and take it out much, much, much further, because I think you're right. I think that, but these are conversations that Dr. Fraser has all the time. And I will give this to you, and please feel free to distribute it. And I'll ask you just if you want me to deliver it to you by Facebook, however you want me to do it, I will do that. But
just send it to my email. Send it to my email, and I'll get it posted up.
I will send it to you. I will.
I can distribute it on my platforms. And Attorney Robert, again, thank you so much for your brilliant insights. Really, very, very important insights. I have not heard them, and I don't know if most of our people have heard what you have said so powerfully and eloquently. And I appreciate you so much. I really do. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to connect all of you, because you all definitely need to be together. And I feel so privileged to have been able to have had this conversation with all of you. Let me go to you, Robert Patillo, and then Pastor Williams, Tisha Dixon Williams. If you would not only speak us out, pray us out. Robert?
Oh, sure,
Absolutely.
Well, just like me, in closing, I think that this is a constructive moment for many of us in the community who are going through the human experience. Many people have had bad relationships. I think pretty much everybody. Many people have had mental health issues. I think pretty much everybody. And I think we just saw the worst possible way of handling it. So if you find yourself in that situation, or you find yourself feeling that way where you need to start assaulting people, please go talk to somebody, get yourself some help. You're not going to be protected by being a millionaire or being a celebrity or having your victim be so gracious as to not press charges. Please seek mental health treatment. There's nothing wrong with talking to a therapist. And if you're in a bad and broken relationship that is causing you stress and causing you to break down, there's no shame in leaving. That leaving is not defeat. Getting out of a bad marriage does not mean your marriage failed. It means that you succeeded in taking care of yourself.
Pastor, amen to that. That's right. That's a success. That's success. Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams.
Love that. I also want to say thank you so much, Santita, for the opportunity to be with you this morning. Certainly to Dr. Frazier, what an honor to share on this platform with you, and also with you, Attorney Patillo. I loved our varying yet similar views, and so what a wonderful conversation. What a wonderful and necessary conversation we had today. So thank you. Let's pray. Lord God, we thank you. I thank you for this day. I thank you for this platform. We thank you, God, for giving us the opportunity, the wisdom, and the wherewithal to have this conversation. We thank you for Santita. We thank you for her ministry. While it is a public broadcast, it is also a ministry as she is touching and changing lives on a daily basis. So we ask, God, that you continue to bless her, strengthen her, give her the resources and the resilience that she needs to continue these worthwhile and wonderful, necessary conversations each day. I pray, God, your blessings upon Dr. Frazier. I pray your blessings upon Attorney Patillo. I pray your blessings on myself, dear God, that whatever it is that you have called us to do, that we will do in your will and in greatness. We pray right now, dear God, that as we open our mouths, we do so not to harm, but to heal. And so right now, God, I'm praying that as we move forward with this day, help us to keep in the forefront of our minds our mental health, our mental healing, our emotional stability. Give us all of those things, dear God. Help us to be mindful of marriage and your design for it. We pray right now, dear God, for every person under the sound of my voice, dear God, that wherever they are, whatever they are struggling with, that you will intercede on their behalf. So we love you, we thank you, we praise you, and we pray for Will Smith. We pray for Jada Smith. We pray for Chris Rock. We pray for everyone involved in this situation that will come to an amicable and peaceful resolution. We love you and we thank you. And I pray right now for everyone listening that God will do something amazing for you, to you, and through you today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. God bless you, everybody. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. Dr. George C. Frazier, Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, Attorney Robert Patillo. I know we ran long today, but I hope that you think that it was worth it. God bless you, everybody. I love you so much. See you on the Santita Jackson Show tomorrow, God willing. Bye-bye.